A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is your brother in Allah Islam and your brother in humanity, Al Hajj Charles Shabazz of Shabazz Islamic Ministries. I just wanted to give you all a quick introduction to this book that I had, I believe, for a year or two now. This is an excellent book. And this is called A Black Man's Journey in America, Glimpses of Islam, Conversations and Travels. It is written by Muhammad Ali Salam or Masalam. So this book is an autobiography of the author, and you can purchase this on Amazon. But I just want to share, a quick message of what really intrigued me about this book. So, as some of you might know, when you look at the history of Islam in this part of the world, in the West or in the Americas, you know that many of our ancestors of people of African descent or ancestors of those from the African diaspora in this part of the world, many of them were Muslim. And many, unfortunately, as a result of the oppressive environment that slavery had produced, many of them either had to keep their faith in secret if they were still practicing. This is called like the concept of takia, which is, to hide your faith, or pretend to the oppressor that you're not a part of that faith, but in your heart you actually still are a part of that faith. That's like the concept of takia. But you still practice, and unfortunately, those who held on to their practices had extreme difficulty of passing their faith on to their children, raise their children in Islam. And this could be for a couple of factors, either because the slavery system were very strict as to what the children of slaves were allowed to believe in, and what slaves in general were allowed to believe in. Plus, a lot of times, the Muslims who they were married to were non-Muslim. So, unfortunately, when they had children together, the mother, who is the first teacher of children, they would influence the children more. So, unfortunately, the children would not be able to be raised Muslim. But in this case, in this book, this is a rare occasion here, because the author, his ancestors, not only were Muslim, but they kept and maintained their Islam. MashaAllah. His great 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 grandfather, from who was kidnapped from Africa and brought to America, he still maintained his faith, and he was able, because of his hard work and his dedication, which won the respect of their slave owners. They were able to grow their own food, and not to where they weren't forced to eat the slave food, the pig and all those things. And they were also able to carefully find the women who either were who were still practicing Islam or were respectful of Islam to where they would allow their children to remain Muslim. And alhamdulillah, his ancestors, the author's ancestors, have been blessed to be able to do those things, practice Islam, and then pass Islam on to their children, to their sons, and to their daughters, right? And it went all the way to the author's father, who was raised Muslim, and his father in turn brought him and his siblings up in Islam. And they're still Muslims to this day, mashallah. And his brother passed away, I think, a few years ago. He was an imam in Montgomery, Alabama, and he was a basketball star at Kentucky State University. He was drafted, I believe, in the 5th round by the Utah Jazz. But he ended up becoming an imam and a chaplain at a hospital. So, but I thought this was just amazing. And we wonder how many families are like that in the African American community. How many families were able to pass down Islam from all those generations ago to the current generation. Of course, this is rare. And just by reading this book just made me wonder about that. Because I doubt now that his case is the only case in the country or in history where his ancestors not only didn't refuse to give up Islam, but they were able to pass this on to their generations. Now I do know this. Historically, Bilali Muhammad and Salih Bilal, I know these were slaves, Muslims who were working on the plantations on islands off the coast of Georgia. This was in the 19th century. And they were not only able to practice Islam freely, and they were able to pass this on to their children well into the early half of the 20th century. There were still descendants of these men who still were practicing Islam. And I guess to Anglicanize their name, today, their descendants today, their family's name is Bailey. And it's not because they had a slave owner named Bailey. It's because Bailey was the closest English name to Bilal. Some of them, unfortunately, the descendants, I guess because of the societal pressures of Jim Crow and whatnot, a lot of them strayed and turned murtad, went apostated to be Christians as a result of those oppressive circumstances. But there's a church, from my understanding, over in that area off of Georgia. Even though it's a church, a Baptist church, there's still some remnants of Islam in that church, where actually the men and women are still separated, like they do in a masjid. So it's definitely something worth investigating and researching if there are still Muslims to this day who who have still maintained their Islam after all these generations. But this is definitely a unique, one of a kind example of this. That's all I have to say, and I certainly highly recommend that you purchase this book. Uh, if you have any, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And there's a channel of this brother. I don't know if his video is still up, but he talks about himself. I'll see, inshallah, if I can put a link under this video. Assalamu alaikum. Peace to everyone else.